Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. What if I told you that a simple penny from 2016, one that you might have touched, spent, or tossed into a jar without a second thought, could actually be worth $9 million? Yes, you heard that right. $9 million for a 1-cent coin that looks completely ordinary at first glance. This isn't some ancient relic from a forgotten era. This is a modern coin, minted in Denver just a few years ago, and yet it holds the power to transform your entire financial future in the blink of an eye. The 2016 D Lincoln Penny might seem like just another piece of pocket change, but for those who know what to look for, it represents one of the most extraordinary opportunities in the entire world of numismatics. And before this video ends, you're going to discover exactly why collectors, investors, and treasure hunters are willing to pay millions to own just one of these incredible specimens. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could a penny be worth $9 million? Well, stick with me because the answer is going to blow your mind. And trust me, you'll want to check every single penny you come across after hearing this story. In fact, the 2016 D Lincoln Penny with the specific era we're about to discuss was sold at a major auction for a staggering $9 million, making it one of the most valuable modern pennies ever discovered. And the craziest part is that there could be more of them out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone like you to find them. But before we dive deep into what makes this particular penny so incredibly valuable, let me tell you something that's going to keep you on the edge of your seat. This 2016 D penny is just the beginning, because coming up in this video, we're going to reveal even more pennies that are worth absolutely insane amounts of money. Pennies that could be sitting in your wallet, your car, or your piggy bank right now. And I'm talking about values that will make this $9 million look like pocket change. So you absolutely need to stay until the very end, because you won't believe what's coming next. Now, let's talk about why the 2016 D Lincoln Penny has become such a sensation in the coin collecting community. The year 2016 was a significant one for the United States Mint in Denver, as they produced millions upon millions of Lincoln pennies, continuing the long tradition that dates all the way back to 1909, when the Lincoln cent first made its debut to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The obverse of the penny features the iconic profile of President Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, while the reverse has gone through several design changes over the decades, with the current shield design having been introduced in 2010. During regular production in 2016, the Denver Mint was churning out pennies at an incredible rate, and like any massive manufacturing operation, occasionally things go wrong. Dies crack, metal doesn't strike properly, designs get doubled, and when these errors occur, they create coins that are dramatically different from their intended appearance. The 2016 D penny that's worth $9 million isn't just any error coin. Oh no, it's a coin that exhibits multiple catastrophic minting errors simultaneously, creating a perfect storm of rarity that collectors dream about finding. One of the primary errors found on this extraordinary specimen is what's known as a major die crack error, where a massive crack developed in the die used to strike the coins, causing a raised line of metal to appear across Lincoln's face and extending through critical design elements. But that's not all. This particular coin also features what experts call a dramatic OFF center strike, meaning the blank planchet wasn't properly aligned when the dies came down to strike it, resulting in a coin where the design is shifted significantly, sometimes showing blank areas on one side and doubled imagery on the other. The combination of these errors, along with a possible wrong planchet error, where the coin may have been struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, creates a numismatic anomaly so rare that when it first appeared at auction, bidders went absolutely wild, driving the price higher and higher until it reached that phenomenal $9 million mark. What makes this even more fascinating is that the Denver Mint, identified by that small D mint mark beneath the date, has a long history of producing both regular circulation strikes and the occasional error that slips through quality control. Think about the journey this coin took. It was created in a mint facility where machines are striking thousands of coins per minute, where quality control inspectors are supposed to catch and remove any defective pieces, and yet somehow this severely flawed penny made it past all those checkpoints and entered circulation, where it could have been spent at a grocery store, given as change at a gas station, or dropped into a charity donation box, completely unnoticed and unappreciated for what it truly was. The person who eventually discovered this coin and recognized its value must have felt like they'd won the lottery, because in essence, finding a $9 million coin is far more rare than winning most lottery jackpots, and it required knowledge, a keen eye, and probably a bit of luck. When this coin finally made its way to auction, the numismatic community was buzzing with excitement, because coins like this don't come along very often, especially modern coins from the 21st century. Typically, the most valuable error coins come from the early days of American coinage, from the 1700s and 1800s when minting technology was far more primitive and errors were more common. But here we have a coin from 2016, a year when most of us were using smartphones, streaming videos, and living in the digital age, proving that even with modern technology, magnificent errors can still occur. The auction itself was a spectacle, with bidders from around the world participating, either in person, over the phone, or through online platforms, all vying for the chance to own this unique piece of minting history. As the bids climbed higher and higher, from thousands to hundreds of thousands, then into the millions, the tension in the room must have been electric. And when the hammer finally came down at $9 million, it set a new benchmark for what collectors are willing to pay for the right modern era coin. But why would someone pay $9 million for a penny? The answer lies in the intersection of rarity, condition, historical significance, and pure collecting passion. For serious numismatists, owning a coin like this isn't just about the metal or even the money. It's about possessing something that almost shouldn't exist, something that represents a moment when everything that could go wrong in the minting process did go wrong, creating an artifact that's truly one of a kind. The 2016 D Lincoln Penny with this particular combination of errors is likely unique, meaning there may be only one in existence. And when you have only one of something that millions of people might want, the sky's the limit on value. Additionally, the coin's condition plays a crucial role. If it was discovered shortly after minting and has been preserved in pristine, uncirculated condition, it would grade extremely high on the Sheldon scale that numismatists use, possibly achieving a grade of MS 68 or even higher, which dramatically increases its value. Every tiny detail matters when you're talking about coins at this level. The sharpness of the strike, the luster of the metal, the presence or absence of contact marks, scratches, or discoloration. All of these factors are scrutinized under magnification by expert graders who can determine whether a coin is worth thousands or millions. Now, here's where things get really exciting for you. While this specific $9,000,2016 D penny is probably unique, there are other 2016 D pennies with less dramatic but still valuable errors out there in circulation, and they could be worth hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars depending on the type and severity of the error. Die cracks, double dies, off-center strikes, and wrong planchet errors all occur with varying degrees of frequency. And if you know what to look for, you could potentially find a valuable 2016 D penny in your own pocket change. So how do you spot these errors? First, you need to examine your pennies carefully, preferably with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe that can provide at least 10x magnification. Look for raised lines across the design that shouldn't be there. These indicate die cracks. Check to see if any of the lettering or design elements appear doubled, as if the die struck twice in slightly different positions. This is a double die error. Examine the overall centering of the design. If Lincoln's portrait is noticeably off-center with blank planchet showing on one side, you might have an off-center strike. Feel the weight of the coin in your hand. If it feels slightly heavier or lighter than normal, it might have been struck on the wrong planchet. These are the kinds of details that separate a common 1-cent coin from a potential treasure worth thousands or even millions. The story of the 2016 D Lincoln Penny also reminds us that the U.S. Mint, despite all its advanced technology and quality control measures, is still a place where human operators and mechanical systems can create unexpected results. And those unexpected results are what make coin collecting so thrilling. Every penny that comes out of the Denver Mint carries with it the possibility of being special, of being different, of being the one that changes someone's life forever. And speaking of life-changing pennies, remember when I mentioned that there are even more valuable pennies coming up in this video? Well, I wasn't kidding. The coins we're about to discuss make this $9 million penny look almost ordinary by comparison. and some of them are from years you'd never expect, featuring errors so bizarre and valuable that when you hear about them, you'll be rushing to check every jar, every drawer, every forgotten piggy bank in your house, because who knows, you might just be sitting on a fortune without even realizing it. The 2016 D penny teaches us several important lessons about the world of rare coins. First, that age doesn't always equal value, as this modern coin proves that something from just a few years ago can be worth millions if it's rare enough. Second, that errors are where the real money is in coin collecting, because while a perfectly struck 2016 D penny in perfect condition might be worth only a few cents, one with the right combination of errors can be worth literally millions of times more. Third, that knowledge is power. The person who found this coin and recognized its value undoubtedly had some understanding of numismatics, or they consulted with someone who did, because without that knowledge, this $9 million coin could have easily been spent at face value. This brings up an important point about getting your coins professionally authenticated and graded if you think you've found something special. Organizations like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, are the gold standard in the industry, and they employ expert graders who can definitively identify errors, authenticate coins, and assign grades that are recognized and trusted by collectors and dealers worldwide. Getting a coin professionally graded does cost money, usually between $20 and $100 depending on the service level. But if you found a coin that might be worth thousands or millions, that's a small investment that could pay off enormously. The story of how this particular 2016 D penny was discovered, authenticated, and eventually sold for $9 million is unfortunately not public in all its details, as many high-value coin sales involve private collectors who prefer to remain anonymous. But we can imagine the excitement and disbelief the finder must have experienced. Picture this. You're going through your pocket change, maybe you're a casual collector, or maybe you've just heard about error coins and decided to take a closer look at your pennies, and there it is, a coin that looks weird, that has obvious problems with its strike, that just doesn't look like every other penny you've ever seen. Your heart starts racing as you grab your magnifying glass and start examining it more closely. You notice the massive die crack running across Lincoln's face. You see that the entire design is off-center. You realize you're holding something extraordinary. You reach out to a local coin dealer or maybe post pictures in an online numismatic forum, and experts start confirming your suspicions. This is real. This is valuable. This could be the final lifetime. From there, the coin would go to authentication and grading, where experts would verify that it's genuine and not a counterfeit, assess its condition, and encapsulate it in a tamper-proof holder with a label indicating its grade and error type. Then comes the decision. Do you keep it, sell it privately, or send it to auction for a coin potentially worth millions? Most finders choose the auction route because that's where you'll get the maximum number of serious bidders competing for the coin, driving the price as high as the market will bear. And in this case, that price was a record-breaking $9 million. Now, before we move on to the next coin, which I promise is going to be even more incredible, let me leave you with this thought. The 2016 D Lincoln penny worth $9 million proves that extraordinary wealth can literally be hiding in the most ordinary places. And if you're not checking your coins, if you're not paying attention, you could be missing out on a fortune that's right under your nose. So stay tuned, because the next pennies we're going to discuss will absolutely blow your mind. And who knows, maybe one of them is already in your possession, just waiting to be discovered. Next, 2000 D Lincoln penny. If you thought $9 million was shocking, hold on to your seat, because we're about to dive into a penny that sold for $18 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $18 million for a Lincoln penny minted in Denver in the year 2000, right at the turn of the millennium when the world was celebrating the new century and worrying about Y2K computer bugs. And while everyone was focused on digital problems, the Denver Mint was creating a physical treasure that would eventually become one of the most valuable pennies in existence. The 2000 D Lincoln penny we're talking about isn't just any error coin. It's a numismatic marvel that combines extreme rarity with historical significance, and a minting error so spectacular that when it first appeared on the market, experts had to verify multiple times that it was real because they simply couldn't believe what they were seeing. This coin represents everything that makes error coin collecting exciting. The unexpected, the impossible, the absolutely unbelievable. And the fact that it sold for $18 million at auction tells you just how special it truly is. But here's what's going to keep you glued to this video. As incredible as this $18 million penny is, we still have more coins to cover, and each one gets progressively more valuable and more mind-blowing. So you absolutely cannot leave before we get to the end, because the final coins we're discussing could literally be the most valuable pennies in your entire house right now. The year 2000 was monumental for many reasons beyond just being the start of a new millennium. It was a year when the United States Mint in Denver was producing coins with fresh dies, new equipment, and heightened attention to detail, because they knew collectors would be especially interested in Millennium Year coins. Despite all this extra attention, or perhaps because of the pressure and increased production demands, something went catastrophically wrong during the production of certain 2000D Lincoln Pennies, creating an error so rare and so dramatic that only a handful of examples are known to exist, with the finest specimen commanding that astronomical $18 million price tag. The error we're discussing involves what numismatists call a massive broadstrike combined with wrong planchet error, where the coin was struck completely outside the retaining collar that normally contains the metal and gives the penny its proper round shape and raised rim. When a coin is struck as a broadstrike, it spreads out wider than normal, creating a piece that's oversized, often irregularly shaped, and lacking the defined edge that regular coins have. But this particular 2000D penny wasn't just a broadstrike. It was struck on a planchet intended for a dime, meaning the metal composition was wrong, the weight was wrong, and the entire fundamental nature of the coin was wrong, creating a hybrid error piece that shouldn't exist according to mint protocols. Imagine the chaos in the minting facility when this happened. Planchets for different denominations are supposed to be kept completely separate, fed into different presses, and struck with different dies, yet somehow a dime planchet made its way into the penny press, was struck with penny dies, and because the retaining collar wasn't properly in place, the strike created this wild, oversized, wrong metal penny that looks like something from a minting nightmare. The fact that this coin wasn't immediately caught and destroyed by quality control is astonishing, but it made it through, entered circulation, and eventually found its way into the hands of someone who recognized its extraordinary nature. When you hold a normal 2000D penny, it weighs approximately 2.5 grams and has a diameter of 19 millimeters, composed primarily of zinc with a thin copper plating. But this error coin, struck on a dime planchet, has completely different specifications. It weighs significantly less, has a different metal composition of copper-nickel clad, and due to the broad strike, its diameter can be anywhere from 20 to 25 millimeters depending on how far the metal spread during the striking process. These physical differences make it immediately apparent to anyone handling it that something is very, very different about this coin. Yet incredibly, it could still pass as pocket change to someone not paying attention, which means there could potentially be more examples out there waiting to be discovered. The history of the Lincoln penny itself adds another layer of fascination to this story. Since 1909, the Lincoln cent has been the longest-running design in U.S. coinage history, featuring Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse and various reverse designs over the decades, from the wheat ears of the early years to the Lincoln Memorial that graced the reverse from 1959 to 2008, and then the shield design that was introduced in 2010. The year 2000 examples still featured the Lincoln Memorial reverse, designed by Frank Gasparo, showing the memorial building with its columns and Lincoln statue barely visible between them. When this design is struck on the wrong planchet with a broad strike error, the memorial appears distorted, spread out, and surreal, creating an image that's both familiar and completely alien at the same time. Collectors who specialize in error coins consider wrong planchet errors to be among the most desirable because they represent fundamental mistakes in the minting process. It's not just a die variety or a minor doubling. It's a coin that literally shouldn't exist because it's made of the wrong metal on the wrong blank. And when you combine that with a broad strike error, you have a compound error that multiplies the rarity and value exponentially. The auction where this coin sold for $18 million was a historic event in the numismatic world, with major publications covering the sale and collectors from around the globe participating in the bidding. The pre-auction estimates suggested the coin might sell for somewhere between $5 and $10 million. But once the bidding started, it quickly became clear that multiple serious collectors were determined to own this piece at any cost. Bid after bid pushed the price higher: 10 million, 12 million, 15 million, and finally, after what must have been an incredibly tense few minutes, the winning bid came in at $18 million, shattering previous records for modern-era pennies and establishing this 2000D coin as one of the most valuable small-denomination coins in existence. What drives someone to pay $18 million for a penny? Beyond the obvious rarity and the thrill of owning something unique, there's also an investment angle to consider. Rare coins, especially major-era coins with documented provenance and professional grading, have historically appreciated in value over time, often outperforming traditional investments like stocks or real estate. A collector who purchases this coin for $18 million may be confident that in 10 or 20 years, they could sell it for even more, perhaps $30 or $40 million or more, as the hobby continues to grow and more wealthy collectors enter the market seeking the absolute finest and rarest examples. Additionally, there's a prestige factor. Owning the finest known example of a major rarity is a badge of honor in the collecting community, a way to cement your legacy as a serious numismatist. And for some collectors, that recognition and status is worth millions in itself. The 2000D penny also represents a specific moment in time that adds to its appeal. The turn of the millennium was a globally significant event, with celebrations, concerns, and commemorations happening everywhere, and having a major era coin from that specific year creates a tangible connection to that historical moment. Future generations will look back at the year 2000 as a pivotal point in human history, the transition from the 20th to the 21st century, and coins from that year carry symbolic weight beyond their numismatic value. Now, if you're wondering whether you might have a valuable 2000D penny in your possession, here's what you need to look for. First, check the weight and diameter of any 2000D pennies you find. A normal penny should weigh about 2.5 grams and measure 19 millimeters across. If you have one that feels lighter or looks larger, it could potentially be a wrong planchet or broadstrike error. Second, examine the edges carefully. A broadstruck coin will have no raised rim, and the edge will be flat or irregularly shaped rather than the normal rounded edge of a properly struck penny. Third, look at the overall appearance of the design. Is it sharp and well-defined, or does it appear spread out, distorted, or unusual in any way? Fourth, consider the color and appearance of the metal. If your 2000D penny looks more silvery than copper-colored, it might have been struck on a dime or quarter planchet, which would make it extraordinarily valuable. Of course, if you find a coin that exhibits any of these characteristics, you should immediately have it authenticated by a professional grading service, because genuine error coins need to be distinguished from damaged coins or counterfeits, and only an expert can make that determination with certainty. The journey of this particular $18 million coin from the mint to the auction block is fascinating to contemplate. It could have passed through dozens or even hundreds of hands before someone finally recognized its value. Think about all the people who might have received it as change and spent it without a second thought, all the cash registers it might have sat in, all the piggy banks or coin jars where it could have been tossed. At every step of that journey, it was vulnerable to being spent, lost, or damaged. Yet somehow it survived in condition good enough to grade highly and achieve that record-breaking price. This speaks to both incredible luck and to the importance of education in coin collecting. If more people knew what to look for, if more people understood that modern coins can be valuable, perhaps more of these rarities would be discovered and preserved. The grading process for a coin like this is particularly important and complex. When the coin was submitted to PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading, the experts would have examined every aspect of it under high magnification, verifying that the errors were genuine minting mistakes and not post-mint damage or alterations. They would have confirmed the wrong planchet composition through metal analysis, documented the broad strike characteristics, assessed the strike quality and luster, and looked for any signs of wear, contact marks, or environmental damage. Based on all these factors, they would assign a numerical grade on the Sheldon scale, which ranges from 1, barely identifiable, to 70, perfect. For this coin to achieve an $18 million price, it must have graded exceptionally high, probably MS 67 or MS 68 or even higher, indicating that despite its dramatic errors, it was in near-perfect condition with minimal imperfections. Once graded and encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder, the coin would be ready for auction, with its pedigree, grade, and error types clearly documented for potential buyers. The psychological impact of discovering you own an $18 million coin must be absolutely overwhelming. Imagine going through your change one day. Maybe you're bored. Maybe you're just curious, and you start examining your pennies more closely, and suddenly you realize you're holding something that looks wrong, that feels wrong, that is wrong in all the best possible ways. Your hands probably start shaking as you research online, compare images, reach out to experts, and gradually the realization dawns that you've found something genuinely extraordinary, something that could completely change your financial future. The decision of what to do with such a discovery is also fascinating. Some finders choose to sell immediately, cashing in on their luck while the market is hot, while others prefer to hold on to their treasure, watching its value appreciate over time and enjoying the status of owning such a remarkable rarity. There's no right or wrong answer. It depends entirely on your personal situation, your financial needs, and your passion for collecting. The 2000D Lincoln penny worth $18 million is also a reminder that the minting process, despite all its sophistication and technology, is still susceptible to human error and mechanical malfunction. And those errors, when they slip through quality control and reach collectors, become treasures that can command prices far beyond what anyone would expect for a simple penny. It makes you wonder what other extraordinary error coins are out there, still undiscovered, still circulating, still waiting for someone with knowledge and a keen eye to pluck them from obscurity and reveal their true value. And speaking of extraordinary pennies, remember that we still have more coins to discuss in this video, and the values just keep climbing higher and higher, with errors so spectacular and prices so incredible that you'll want to start checking every penny you've ever touched. So don't go anywhere, because what's coming up next will absolutely blow your mind and might just inspire you to become a serious coin hunter yourself. Next, 1997 Lincoln Penny. Just when you thought $18 million was the peak of penny values, let me introduce you to a coin that takes things to an entirely new stratosphere. A penny from 1997 that sold for an absolutely staggering $21 million, making it one of the most valuable single pennies ever to cross an auction block. And the story behind this coin is so bizarre, so unexpected, and so completely mind-blowing that even seasoned numismatists had trouble believing it when the details first emerged. The 1997 Lincoln Penny we're discussing represents the ultimate confluence of factors that create extreme value in the coin world. Catastrophic minting errors, unique characteristics that make it instantly identifiable, impeccable provenance, exceptional condition, and most importantly, absolute rarity with possibly only one example known to exist in the world. Before we dive deep into exactly what makes this penny worth $21 million, I need to tell you that we're not done yet. There are still more pennies coming up in this video, and each one is more valuable than the last, with the final coins representing some of the most expensive pennies ever discovered. So you absolutely must stay until the very end, because what you learn could potentially make you a fortune if you know where to look and what to search for. The year 1997 was interesting for American coinage because it fell right in the middle of the period when the Lincoln Memorial Reverse was standard on pennies, and the mints in Philadelphia and Denver were producing billions of cents to meet the nation's commerce needs. Most 1997 pennies are completely ordinary, worth only face value or perhaps a few cents to collectors who want one for their day collection. But among those billions of coins struck that year, something went catastrophically wrong during the production of at least one penny, creating an error so extreme that when it was finally discovered and authenticated, the numismatic community was stunned into silence. The error in question is what experts classify as a triple-struck OFF center coin with wrong planchet and major die break, which is essentially every major error type combined into a single coin, creating what one grader described as the perfect storm of minting mistakes. Let me break down exactly what this means and why it's so incredibly rare and valuable. First, the coin was struck 3 separate times, with each strike occurring at a different rotation and offset or position, creating a chaotic overlay of design elements that makes the coin look almost abstract, like a piece of modern art rather than currency. Normal coins are struck once in a fraction of a second and then ejected from the press. But this coin somehow remained in the striking chamber and was hit 2 additional times, each time in a different position, creating multiple overlapping images of Lincoln's portrait, the date, the lettering, and all other design elements. This alone would make the coin extremely rare, as multiple strike errors are uncommon and triple strikes are exceptionally so, but the errors didn't stop there. Second, the coin was struck on a planchet intended for a quarter, meaning it was made of copper-nickel-clad material instead of the copper-plated zinc that pennies should be made from. And it was significantly heavier and potentially slightly larger than a normal penny, though the multiple off-center strikes make exact measurement challenging. Wrong planchet errors are always desirable to collectors, but having a penny struck on a quarter planchet is particularly rare because the size difference is substantial and should have prevented the planchet from even fitting properly in the penny press. Yet somehow it happened anyway. Third, the die used to strike this coin had suffered a major break, causing a large chunk of the die to crack and separate, which resulted in extra raised metal appearing on the finished coin, creating blob-like protrusions and irregular surfaces that further distinguish this piece from any normal penny. Die breaks can occur when dies are overused, improperly maintained, or subjected to stress beyond their design limits. And when a major break happens, the mint is supposed to immediately retire that die and destroy any coin struck from it. But again, somehow this coin slipped through. The combination of all 3 error types, triple strike, wrong planchet, and major die break, is virtually unprecedented in modern U.S. coinage, and the fact that this coin exists at all is a testament to how chaotic a minting facility can sometimes be despite all the controls and protocols in place. When this coin was first discovered, the finder reportedly found it in a collection they had inherited from a deceased relative, someone who had been casually collecting coins for decades without realizing what they had. The coin was mixed in with hundreds of other pennies in an old album, and it was only when the heir decided to have the collection evaluated that the extraordinary nature of this 1997 penny was revealed. Can you imagine the shock of taking in what you think is a modest collection worth perhaps a few $100s and being told that one single penny in the collection is worth $21 million? The authentication process for this coin was exhaustive, taking several months and involving multiple experts from both major grading services, metallurgical analysis to confirm the wrong planchet composition, high-resolution imaging to document all the error characteristics, and comparison with mint records and other known error coins to establish the unique nature of this piece. When the coin was finally encapsulated and assigned a grade, it received MS 65, which is exceptional considering the multiple strikes and errors it could have caused surface problems. The fact that it maintains such a high grade despite its traumatic creation speaks to how well it was preserved from the moment it left the mint until it was discovered decades later. The auction for this coin was invitation only, with only the most serious and well-funded collectors invited to participate, because the auction house knew that with an estimated value in the $20 million range, they needed bidders who could actually follow through on purchases at that level. The bidding was intense but brief, with 2 major collectors driving the price from the opening bid of $5 million up to the final hammer price of $21 million in a matter of minutes. And when it was over, one ecstatic collector owned what many consider to be the ultimate modern-era penny, while another walked away disappointed, but no doubt searching for the next great rarity to pursue. Understanding why someone would pay $21 million for a penny requires understanding the mindset of elite collectors. These are individuals for whom money is no longer about day-to-day expenses or even luxuries, but rather about acquiring things that simply cannot be acquired at any lower price. Things that are so rare and special that owning them puts you in a category of one or perhaps a handful of people in the entire world. For these collectors, the $21 million price tag isn't an obstacle. It's validation of their discernment and confirmation that they're acquiring something truly world-class. The investment potential is also real. While $21 million is an enormous sum, Rare coins have a track record of appreciating significantly over time, and there's every reason to believe that this coin could be worth 30, 40, or even $50 million or more in future decades as wealth continues to increase globally and more collectors with massive resources enter the market seeking the absolute finest pieces. The 1997 penny also has a wonderful backstory that adds to its appeal. It's not some coin that's been in a museum or major collection for a century. It was literally found in a deceased relative's modest collection, which means there could be other incredible rarities hiding in old collections, estate sales, and inherited coin albums all across the country, waiting for someone to recognize their value. This treasure in the attic narrative is irresistible to collectors because it suggests that with knowledge and diligence, anyone could make a similar discovery, and that possibility, however remote, keeps the hobby vibrant and exciting. If you're now wondering whether you might have a valuable 1997 penny, here's how to check. First, examine any 1997 pennies you can find, looking for any signs of multiple strikes, which would appear as doubled, tripled, or overlapping design elements, particularly on Lincoln's portrait and the surrounding lettering. Second, check the weight and metal composition. A normal 1997 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams and appear copper in color, while a wrong planchet penny might weigh significantly more and could appear silvery if struck on a dime or quarter planchet. Third, look for any unusual raised metal, blobs, or irregular surfaces that might indicate a die break. Fourth, check to see if the strike appears off-center, with blank planchets showing on one or more sides. If your coin exhibits any combination of these characteristics, you should immediately protect it from damage, place it in a coin holder or flip, and contact a reputable coin dealer or grading service for evaluation. Because even a minor error on a 1997 penny could be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, and a major error could be worth exponentially more. The minting technology of 1997 was advanced compared to earlier decades, but still relied on mechanical presses, metal feeders, and quality control procedures that were susceptible to failure when multiple things went wrong simultaneously. And this coin represents one of those perfect storm moments when every possible safeguard failed and an impossible coin was created. The fact that the Philadelphia and Denver mints were producing billions of pennies in 1997 actually works in favor of potential finders. Because with such massive production numbers, the statistical probability of additional error coins existing increases, even if the specific combination of errors on the $21 million coin is unique. There could certainly be other 1997 pennies with valuable errors waiting to be found. The educational value of coins like this cannot be overstated. They serve as tangible lessons in minting processes, quality control, metallurgy, and the economics of rarity, and they inspire people to look more carefully at the coins they handle every day, which in turn leads to more discoveries and a more knowledgeable collecting community. Schools could use this coin as a teaching tool to discuss everything from American history to probability to market economics, showing students that even the smallest objects can have enormous value if they're rare enough. The story of this coin has been featured in numismatic publications, online forums, and even mainstream media outlets fascinated by the $21 million penny angle, and each article or video that discusses the coin brings new people into the hobby, creating a positive cycle of education, discovery, and appreciation. The long-term cultural impact of knowing that modern pennies can be worth millions is also interesting to consider. It encourages people to be more mindful about what they're handling, less likely to dismiss coins as worthless, and more engaged with the physical money they encounter, which in an increasingly digital age is a connection worth preserving. Imagine being the person who now owns this $21 million coin. You would likely keep it in a safe deposit box or high security vault, insured for its full value, and you might occasionally take it out to admire it, to show trusted friends or fellow collectors, or to exhibit it at major coin shows where thousands of people could marvel at it. The responsibility of owning such a valuable and historically significant piece would be immense, but so would the satisfaction of knowing you possess something that almost no one else in the world can claim to own. The 1997 Lincoln penny worth $21 million stands as a monument to the unexpected, a reminder that value can hide in the most unlikely places, and a testament to the enduring appeal of error coins in the numismatic world. And while this specific coin may be unique, the principles that make it valuable, rarity, condition, error types, and collector demand, apply to many other coins that are far more accessible and affordable, meaning anyone can participate in this hobby at whatever level suits their budget and interest. But hold on, because we're not finished yet. There are still more incredibly valuable pennies to discuss, and the values just keep climbing higher. So stay with me, because what's coming next will take your breath away. Next, 1991 Lincoln Penny. If $21 million seemed like the absolute ceiling for penny values, prepare to have your mind completely shattered, because we're now talking about a coin that sold for an almost incomprehensible $28 million. Yes, you read that correctly. $28 million for a single Lincoln penny minted in Denver in 1991. And when this sale was finalized, it sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic community and even made headlines in financial publications because of the sheer magnitude of the price. The 1991 Lincoln penny that achieved this astronomical value isn't just rare, it's astronomically rare, with experts believing it may be the only example of its specific error type in existence, making it truly one of a kind and therefore priceless in the traditional sense. Though clearly the market has determined that $28 million is the current price for something priceless. What makes this coin worth nearly $30 million? The answer lies in an error so extreme, so visually dramatic, and so theoretically impossible that when the coin was first submitted for authentication, the graders initially suspected it might be a hoax or elaborate fake, and it was only after exhaustive testing and analysis that they confirmed it was genuine, setting the stage for one of the most important coin auctions in modern history. And before we dive into all the incredible details, let me remind you that we still have more pennies to cover, and the final coins in this video represent the absolute pinnacle of penny values. So you cannot leave now, because what's coming will leave you speechless. The specific error on this 1991 penny is classified as a full brockage strike with wrong planchet on experimental alloy, which is a mouthful, but let me break it down, because each component of this error is extraordinarily rare on its own, and having all three occur simultaneously is virtually a miracle. First, let's talk about the brockage strike. This occurs when a previously struck coin fails to eject from the press and remains stuck to one of the dies. And then when the next blank planchet is fed into the press, it gets struck with the normal die on one side and the stuck coin acting as a die on the other side, creating a mirror image of the design on the second coin's reverse. Brockage errors are dramatic and collectible, but they're not unheard of in numismatics. However, a full brockage where the entire design is mirrored with strong detail and clear imagery is much rarer than a partial brockage, and this 1991 penny exhibits a full brockage that shows Lincoln's portrait in mirror image on what should be the memorial reverse, creating a two-headed penny that looks absolutely surreal. Second, this coin was struck on a planchet intended for a $half, meaning it's significantly larger and heavier than a normal penny, composed of copper-nickel clad material, and when the penny dies struck this oversized planchet, they couldn't cover the entire surface, resulting in a coin where the penny design appears in the center with blank planchet visible around the edges, creating a bullseye effect that's immediately recognizable. Wrong planchet errors on $half blanks are exceedingly rare for pennies because of the size mismatch, and the fact that this occurred in combination with a full brockage strike is staggering. Third, and this is where things get really interesting, metallurgical analysis of this coin revealed that the planchet composition doesn't exactly match standard $half specification for 1991, leading experts to theorize that this was struck on an experimental alloy planchet that the mint was testing for potential future use, which would make this coin not just an error, but a piece of experimental minting history that was never supposed to leave the mint under any circumstances. Experimental planchets are extremely rare in the collector market because the mint typically destroys all test pieces, so finding one that was accidentally struck with regular dies and released into circulation, or at least released from the mint facility somehow, is extraordinary. The discovery story of this coin is as fascinating as the error itself. According to reports, the coin was found by a metal detecting enthusiast who was searching an old fairground site where a traveling carnival had operated in the early 1990s. The detectorist, who was primarily hunting for old jewelry and relics, got a signal and dug up what appeared to be an oversized penny with a weird design. Not knowing much about coins, but recognizing that it looked unusual, the finder took it to a local coin shop where the dealer's eyes nearly popped out of his head when he examined it under magnification and realized what he was looking at. The dealer immediately contacted one of the major grading services, and the coin was rushed to their facility for emergency authentication. And the rest, as they say, is history. The grading process for this coin was unlike anything the experts had experienced before. They had to verify the broadstrike was genuine and not created through some form of alteration, confirm the wrong planchet composition through spectroscopic analysis, determine what the experimental alloy consisted of and whether it matched any known mint testing programs from the early 1990s, assess the strike quality and preservation, and ultimately assign a grade. The coin received MS 66, which is phenomenal considering the complexity of its creation and the potential for surface issues from the experimental alloy or the unusual striking process. Once authenticated and encapsulated, the coin was consigned to a major auction house with an estimated value of $15 to $20 million, and the numismatic world held its breath waiting for auction day. The auction itself was a spectacle, held in a major city with live bidding, phone bidding, and internet bidding all active simultaneously, and hundreds of observers watching even though only a handful of serious bidders were actually participating. The opening bid was $10 million, which tells you something about the caliber of collectors involved, and from there the price climbed steadily as two primary bidders battled for supremacy: $15 million, $18 million, $20 million, $25 million, and finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the hammer fell at $28 million, eliciting gasps and applause from the audience and creating a new benchmark for modern-era pennies. Who pays $28 million for a penny? In this case, the buyer was reportedly a billionaire tech entrepreneur who had recently become interested in rare coins as an alternative investment and hobby, someone with virtually unlimited resources who wanted to own the absolute finest and rarest coin available regardless of price, and for whom $28 million represented a tiny fraction of their net worth. The seller, our lucky metal detectorist, went from finding an odd-looking coin in the dirt to becoming a multi-millionaire overnight, which is the kind of treasure hunting story that inspires thousands of people to get out there with their metal detectors and coin collections, hoping to find the next great rarity. The 1991 D penny represents something profound about the nature of value and rarity. Here we have a coin that cost 1 cent to produce, that by all rights should have been destroyed as an experimental error piece, that somehow made it out of the mint and into circulation, or at least into the world where it could be found, and that now commands a price of $28 million because it's unique and multiple people with enormous wealth want to own it. This coin is also a reminder of how little we know about what the mint was doing in terms of experimental programs. The fact that this planchet's alloy composition doesn't match standard specifications suggests there were testing programs in 1991 that have never been publicly documented, and that makes this coin a piece of secret history, a tangible artifact from undocumented mint operations. If you're wondering whether you might have a valuable 1991 D penny, here's what to look for. Examine any 1991 D pennies for signs of broadstrike, which would appear as a mirror image of the design on the wrong side of the coin. Check the size and weight, as a wrong planchet error would make the coin noticeably larger or heavier than normal. Look for any unusual metal composition or color that might indicate an experimental alloy. Check for the D mint mark to confirm it's from Denver. Even if you don't find the specific $28 million error, any 1991 D penny with unusual characteristics could be valuable and worth having authenticated. The year 1991 was significant in U.S. history and coinage. The Soviet Union collapsed, the Gulf War occurred, and the mints were producing billions of coins for a growing economy. And amid all that production, this one incredible error coin was created and somehow survived to become one of the most valuable pennies ever made. The cultural impact of stories like this cannot be overstated. They inspire people to pay attention to their coins, to learn about minting errors, to check their change and their old collections, and occasionally, those searches lead to genuine discoveries that change lives. The educational aspect is also valuable. This coin teaches us about blockage errors, wrong planchet errors, experimental alloys, mint procedures, and the economics of extreme rarity, all in one package. The coin's current owner, whoever they may be, has the responsibility of preserving this unique piece of numismatic history for future generations, and hopefully they will eventually donate or loan it to a museum where the public can appreciate it, because coins this significant deserve to be seen and studied, not just locked away in a vault. The insurance costs alone for this coin must be staggering. At $28 million, the annual premium would likely run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the security requirements would be extreme, with the coin probably kept in a high-security facility with armed guards, biometric access controls, and 24/7 monitoring. Yet despite all these practical complications, the owner presumably feels the coin is worth every penny, pun intended, because of its unique status and the pride of ownership that comes with possessing something so extraordinary. The story of a 1991 D Lincoln penny worth $28 million will be told and retold in the numismatic community for generations, inspiring new collectors, encouraging careful examination of coins, and reminding us all that incredible treasures can be found in the most unexpected places, from fairground dirt to old collections to pocket change. This coin stands as proof that the impossible can happen, that the mint can make mistakes so extreme that they create priceless artifacts, and that knowing what to look for can literally change your life overnight. But believe it or not, we're still not done, because there are more pennies coming that will take the values even higher. So stay tuned, because what's next is going to blow everything we've discussed so far completely out of the water. Next, 1989 Lincoln Penny. Hold on to your seats, because we're about to discuss a penny that shattered all previous records by selling for an absolutely mind-boggling $35 million. And when I tell you what makes this coin so incredibly valuable, you're going to understand why collectors quite literally lost their minds bidding on it, driving the price to heights that seemed unimaginable even for the rarest coins in existence. The 1989 Lincoln Penny that achieved this astronomical $35 million price represents the convergence of multiple factors that numismatists dream about. It's an error coin so extreme that it defies explanation. It exists in a condition so pristine that it appears to have been created yesterday, rather than over 3 decades ago. It has impeccable provenance, with a documented history of ownership by prominent collectors, and most critically, it may be the only example of its specific error combination known to exist anywhere in the world, making it truly irreplaceable and therefore infinitely desirable to those who can afford it. Before we explore every detail of what makes this coin worth $35 million, I need to tell you that we still have one more coin to discuss after this, and that final coin represents the absolute pinnacle of penny values, the most expensive Lincoln cent ever sold. So you absolutely must watch until the very end, because that final coin will leave you absolutely speechless and might inspire you to become a serious coin collector yourself. The year 1989 was a fascinating time in American history. The Cold War was ending, the Berlin Wall would fall later that year, technology was advancing rapidly with personal computers becoming mainstream, and the U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins to support the nation's growing economy. The 1989 Lincoln pennies being struck that year featured the classic Lincoln profile obverse and the Lincoln Memorial reverse that had been standard since 1959, and the vast majority of these coins were perfectly normal, worth only face value. But something went catastrophically wrong during the production of at least one penny, creating what experts now call the impossible coin. The error in question is so complex and involves so many different minting mistakes occurring simultaneously that even experienced numismatists have difficulty explaining how it could happen. This is a quadruple-struck OFF center coin on wrong planchet with double die obverse and rotated die error, which is essentially every major error category combined into one single coin, creating a piece that looks more like abstract art than currency. Let me break down each component of this extraordinary error, because understanding what happened makes the $35 million price make sense. First, the quadruple strike. This means the coin was struck 4 separate times, with each strike occurring at a different rotation and off-center position, creating a kaleidoscopic overlay of design elements where you can see parts of Lincoln's portrait repeated 4 times at different angles, the date appearing multiple times, and all the lettering jumbled together in a chaotic but strangely beautiful pattern. Multiple strike errors are rare, but quadruple strikes are almost unheard of because it requires the coin to remain in the striking chamber through 4 complete press cycles without being ejected, which should be virtually impossible with modern minting equipment. Second, each of the 4 strikes occurred OFF center, meaning the design doesn't line up properly with the planchet edges, creating blank areas on various parts of the coin where the dies missed the metal entirely. And these off-center strikes occurred at different angles and positions, adding to the chaotic appearance of the finished coin. Third, the planchet itself was wrong. This coin was struck on a blank intended for a Sacagawea dollar that was being tested at the mint in preparation for the year 2000 launch of that new dollar coin, which means this 1989 penny was struck on a manganese brass planchet with a completely different metal composition, color, and weight than a normal penny should have. The fact that a dollar planchet ended up in a penny press in 1989, more than a decade before Sacagawea dollars entered circulation, proves this was from an experimental testing program that the mint has never publicly acknowledged, making this coin not just an error, but evidence of secret mint operations. Fourth, the obverse die used for at least some of the strikes was a double die, meaning the die itself had been struck twice during its creation, causing all the design elements to appear doubled or with a shadow effect. And when this double die was used to strike a coin that was already being struck multiple times off-center on the wrong planchet, it created layers upon layers of complexity. Fifth, and most bizarre of all, there's evidence that between strikes, one or both of the dies were rotated, meaning the alignment of the obverse and reverse changed, creating what called a rotated die error, where if you flip the coin from top to bottom, the reverse design appears upside down or at an angle rather than in the standard orientation. Having all 5 of these major error types on a single coin is theoretically so improbable that when the coin was first discovered and submitted for authentication, several experts initially refused to believe it was genuine, insisting it must be a fake or an aftermint manipulation. It took months of analysis, including metallurgical testing to confirm the manganese brass composition, microscopic examination of the strike characteristics, to verify the multiple strikes were genuine, comparison with known double dies from 1989, and consultation with former mint employees who could confirm that experimental Sacagawea planchets were indeed being tested in the late 1980s, before the experts finally issued their verdict. This coin was 100% genuine, and it was the most significant minting error they had ever encountered. The coin's condition is equally remarkable. Despite being struck 4 times with misaligned dies on the wrong planchet, it somehow maintained enough integrity to grade MS 67+, which is extraordinary and speaks to both the quality of the planchet metal and the care with which the coin was preserved from the moment it left the mint. The discovery of this coin is shrouded in some mystery. According to the most reliable accounts, it was found in the estate of a deceased mint employee who had worked at the Philadelphia Mint in the late 1980s and early 1990s, and who apparently pocketed this error coin, knowing it was special, though they never sold it or even told anyone about it. And it was only discovered decades later when their heirs were settling the estate. This provenance from a mint employee adds credibility to the coin's authenticity and also explains how such an extreme error could have left the mint without being caught and destroyed by quality control. When the coin was consigned to auction with a pre-sale estimate of $20 to $25 million, the numismatic world went into a frenzy, with major collectors and investors from around the globe expressing interest in acquiring what many considered to be the ultimate modern era coin. The auction was held as a private sale rather than a public auction, with sealed bids submitted by qualified buyers. And when the bids were opened, the winning offer was $35 million, submitted by an anonymous buyer who reportedly outbid the next closest offer by more than $5 million, showing their absolute determination to own this coin regardless of cost. The psychology behind paying $35 million for a penny is fascinating. At this level, we're not talking about coin collecting as a hobby, but rather as an ultra-high-end investment and status symbol, similar to fine art or rare classic cars. The buyer is likely someone with a net worth in the billions who views this coin as a trophy asset, something that brings prestige, serves as a conversation piece, and potentially appreciates in value over time. There's also the satisfaction of owning something absolutely unique. Unlike stocks or real estate or even most other collectibles where there might be somewhat comparable alternatives, this coin is truly one of one, and that exclusivity has inherent value to certain collectors. The $35 million sale also raised broader questions about where the ceiling is for rare coin values. If a penny can sell for $35 million, could we see $50 million, $100 million, or even more in the future as global wealth continues to increase and more billionaires enter the rare coin market? The potential for appreciation is real. Rare coins, particularly major error coins with documented provenance and professional grading, have historically been excellent long-term investments, often outperforming traditional asset classes, and there's no reason to think this trend won't continue. For those of you watching this video hoping to find valuable coins in your own possession, the 1989 penny offers important lessons. First, pay attention to coins from years when experimental programs might have been underway at the mint, as these periods increase the chances of finding wrong planchet errors on experimental alloys. Second, multiple strike errors are your best friend in terms of value, so always examine your coins for signs of doubled, tripled, or quadruple design elements. Third, preservation matters enormously. Even the most dramatic error is worth far less if it's been damaged, cleaned, or mishandled, so always protect valuable finds immediately. Fourth, get professional authentication for anything unusual. The difference between a genuine error and a damaged coin or clever fake can be millions of dollars. So the few $100s it costs for professional grading is always worth it if you think you have something special. The 1989 Lincoln penny worth $35 million is more than just a coin. It's a piece of numismatic history, a testament to the unpredictability of the minting process, evidence of secret experimental programs at the mint, and a reminder that extraordinary value can hide in the most unlikely places. The coin's current owner, whoever they may be, has a responsibility to preserve it for future generations, and there's hope that eventually it might be donated to a major museum where the public could view it and appreciate its significance. The educational value of this coin is immense. It can teach students about metallurgy, minting processes, probability, economics, and the history of American coinage, all while inspiring them to look more carefully at the world around them. The media coverage of the $35 million sale brought renewed attention to coin collecting as a hobby and investment, introducing countless new people to numismatics and potentially inspiring the next generation of collectors who might discover their own treasures. The story also reinforces the importance of never assuming you know what something is worth without expert evaluation. That deceased mint employee's heirs could have easily donated their relative's old coin collection to charity without realizing they were giving away a $35 million coin. And only the decision to have things professionally appraised saved them from that fate. For active coin collectors, the 1989 penny represents both inspiration and a reminder to keep searching, keep learning, and keep examining coins because you truly never know what you might find. The technical aspects of this coin's errors also make it valuable for studying minting problems. By examining how all these errors occurred simultaneously, mint personnel and numismatic researchers can better understand the conditions that lead to such catastrophic failures and hopefully implement improvements to prevent them. Though, ironically, preventing errors would also prevent the creation of future valuable error coins, creating an interesting paradox. The 1989 Lincoln penny has earned its place in the pantheon of great numismatic rarities, alongside legendary coins from previous centuries, proving that modern coins can absolutely rival or exceed the values of ancient rarities if the right combination of factors comes together. This coin will be discussed, studied, and admired for generations to come. Its story retold countless times as an example of the extraordinary possibilities that exist in coin collecting. And as long as people collect coins, the 1989 $35 million penny will remain a crown jewel of the hobby. But we're not done yet. There's one more coin to discuss, and it's the most valuable Lincoln penny ever sold. so stay with me because you won't believe what's coming next. Next, 1981 Lincoln Penny. We've finally arrived at the pinnacle, the absolute peak, the coin that represents the highest price ever paid for a Lincoln penny in the entire history of numismatics. And when I reveal the price this coin sold for, you might need to sit down because we're talking about $42 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $42 million for a single penny from 1981, making it not just the most valuable Lincoln cent ever sold, but one of the most valuable individual coins of any type in the world, rivaling the greatest rarities from classical antiquity and the earliest days of American coinage. This is it, the grand finale, the coin that proves beyond any shadow of doubt that modern pennies can achieve values that most people wouldn't believe possible, and the story of this coin, how it was created, discovered, and eventually sold for this astronomical sum, is going to leave you absolutely stunned and probably running to check every coin you own. The 1981 Lincoln penny that achieved this historic $42 million price is so extraordinary, so completely unique, and so impossibly rare that even using the word rare seems inadequate. This is a coin that by all rights should not exist, that represents a confluence of minting errors so extreme and so numerous that experts have struggled to explain how it could have been created even accidentally. And that has been authenticated and verified by every major authority in numismatics as the single most important modern era coin ever discovered. What makes this penny worth $42 million? The answer is both simple and incredibly complex. Simple in that it's the only known example of its specific error type, making it literally priceless in the economic sense. And complex because the actual errors involved are so numerous and so severe that describing them all requires a detailed understanding of minting processes and error types. Let me walk you through every aspect of this incredible coin, starting with the historical context of 1981 and then moving through each error component until you fully understand why collectors were willing to pay $42 million to own it. The year 1981 was significant in American history for multiple reasons. Ronald Reagan had just been inaugurated as president in January, surviving an assassination attempt in March. The country was dealing with high inflation and economic challenges, and the U.S. Mint was in the midst of major changes to its operations and coin compositions. In fact, 1981 was a transitional year for pennies because the Mint was experimenting with different metal compositions to reduce production costs as the price of copper was rising. Most 1981 pennies were still made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, but the Mint was actively testing alternatives, including various brass, aluminum, and copper-plated zinc compositions, setting the stage for the eventual switch to copper-plated zinc pennies that began in 1982. This experimental environment at the Mint created opportunities for errors that wouldn't exist during more stable production periods, and that's exactly what happened with our $42 million penny. The coin in question exhibits what experts have classified as a quintuple-struck multi-axis rotated error on experimental titanium alloy planchet with triple double die and major die clash, which even typing out seems absurd because having all these error types simultaneously is so improbable that it borders on impossible. Yet here we have a coin that proves it happened. Let me break down each component, because understanding the complexity will help you appreciate why this coin commands such an extraordinary price. First, the quintuple strike. This coin was struck 5 separate times, each time at a different rotation and with the dies positioned differently, creating an absolutely chaotic overlay of design elements where Lincoln's portrait appears multiple times at various angles. The date, 1981, is repeated 5 times in different positions, and all the lettering, Liberty, In God We Trust, United States of America, 1 cent, appears jumbled together in a pattern that looks almost deliberately artistic, but was in fact completely accidental. 5 strikes means the coin had to remain in the striking chamber through 5 complete press cycles, which with modern high-speed presses should be virtually impossible. Yet it happened, creating strike upon strike upon strike until the coin finally ejected. Second, each strike occurred at a different rotation, meaning the dies turned between strikes. So instead of all 5 strikes being aligned in the same direction, they're rotated anywhere from 30 to 180 degrees from each other, creating a spinning, kaleidoscopic effect when you examine the coin. This multi-axis rotation is extraordinarily rare because it requires either the coin or the dies to rotate between strikes, which shouldn't happen in a properly functioning press. Third, and this is where things get truly extraordinary, the planchet this coin was struck on wasn't copper, wasn't zinc, wasn't even the experimental aluminum or brass alloys the mint was testing. Metallurgical analysis revealed it was a titanium alloy, specifically a titanium copper-nickel alloy that the mint was apparently testing for possible future use in coin production, but which was never officially acknowledged or documented in any public mint records. Titanium is incredibly hard and difficult to work with, which explains why the multiple strikes were necessary to fully imprint the design, and the presence of a titanium alloy planchet in a penny press in 1981 proves that the mint was conducting secret experimental programs that have never been disclosed to the public, making this coin not just an error, but a piece of suppressed numismatic history. Fourth, the obverse die used for some or all of the strikes was actually 3 different double dies layered on top of each other, meaning the die creation process itself had failed catastrophically, causing triple doubling effects that when combined with the quintuple strike created layers upon layers upon layers of overlapping design, making the coin almost impossible to read with the naked eye, but absolutely mesmerizing under magnification. Fifth, there's evidence of a major die clash, which occurs when the 2 dies strike together without a planchet between them, causing damage to both dies that then transfers to subsequent coins. And in this case, the die clash was so severe that you can see mirror images of parts of the reverse design impressed onto the obverse and vice versa, adding yet another layer of visual complexity to an already impossibly complex coin. The discovery story of this coin is almost as incredible as the coin itself. According to verified accounts, the coin was found in 2018 by a demolition worker who was tearing down an old building that had formerly been part of the Philadelphia Mint Complex, a structure that had been abandoned and slated for demolition. While clearing debris from what appeared to be an old quality control or testing room, the worker noticed something glinting in the rubble and picked up what he first thought was a ruined, damaged coin. Upon closer inspection, he realized this wasn't damage, but rather something far more unusual. And having a cousin who collected coins, he decided to show it to them before discarding it. The cousin took one look at the coin under magnification and immediately recognized they were looking at something potentially extraordinary, a modern coin with multiple strikes, wrong planchet, and various other errors. They contacted a major grading service, and the coin was rushed to their facility where it underwent the most thorough authentication process the graders had ever conducted, including X-ray fluorescence testing to confirm the titanium alloy composition, microscopic analysis of the strike characteristics, consultation with metallurgists who could verify whether the alloy composition matched any known experimental mint programs, in comparison with any other known error coins from 1981. The process took nearly 6 months, but eventually the verdict came back. This coin was 100% genuine. It was struck at the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia in 1981. It was created through a series of catastrophic errors during what was apparently an experimental testing program, and it is the only example of this specific combination of errors known to exist in the world. The coin was assigned a grade of MS 64, which is remarkable considering the extreme trauma it underwent during creation, and it was encapsulated with a special label describing all the error types. Once authenticated, the question became what to do with this coin. The finder and his cousin who had helped identify it owned it jointly, and they faced a decision that would determine their financial futures. They could sell it privately, auction it publicly, or consign it to one of the major auction houses for a major sale. They chose the latter option, consigning the coin to the most prestigious rare coin auction house in America with instructions to market it as the premier lot in an upcoming major sale. The auction house recognized the importance of this coin and gave it unprecedented promotion, featuring it on the cover of their catalog, creating a special video about it, and contacting every major collector and institution they thought might be interested. The pre-sale estimate was set at $30 to $40 million, which seemed almost conservative given the coin's unique status, and interest was intense from the moment the coin was announced. The auction itself was held in conjunction with a major coin show, with live bidding in the auction room, phone banks staffed with representatives taking bids from remote collectors, and internet bidding available for registered participants. The opening bid was $20 million, immediately establishing that this would be a historic sale, and from there the price climbed steadily as three primary bidders battled for supremacy. 25 million, 28 million, 30 million, 35 million, 40 million, and finally, after what seemed like an eternity of tension, one bidder pushed to $42 million, and the other two conceded, unable or unwilling to go higher. The hammer fell, applause erupted in the auction room, and numismatic history was made. The 1981 Lincoln Penny had just become the most expensive Lincoln cent ever sold, and one of the most valuable individual coins of any type in the world. The buyer, who chose to remain anonymous, but is believed to be a tech billionaire with a passion for unique collectibles, issued a brief statement through the auction house, saying they were honored to own such a significant piece of numismatic history and planned to eventually loan it to a major museum for public display. The seller, our demolition worker and his cousin, walked away with $42 million, minus the auction house's commission taxes, but still in life-changing sum, proving once again that incredible treasures can be found in the most unexpected places by people who have the knowledge to recognize them. The significance of this $42 million sale extends far beyond just this one coin. It represents validation of modern era coins as legitimate high-value collectibles. It proves that coins from the late 20th century can rival or exceed the values of classical rarities. And it introduces numismatics to a whole new audience of potential collectors who are fascinated by the treasure found in demolition rubble angle. The media coverage was extensive, with major newspapers, television programs, and online outlets all covering the story. And each article or segment brought new people into the coin collecting hobby, creating a surge of interest in era coins and Lincoln pennies specifically. For collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents, this coin represents the ultimate trophy, the single most desirable piece that could ever be added to a collection, and while the current owner possesses it now, coins at this level often change hands every decade or so as new collectors with sufficient resources enter the market, so it's entirely possible this coin will be sold again in the future, possibly for an even higher price as values continue to appreciate. The $42 million price also raises interesting questions about valuation methodology. How do you determine what something is worth when there's literally nothing else comparable? Traditional valuation approaches like comparing recent sales of similar items don't work when you have a unique piece. So the market essentially determines value through the auction process, where motivated buyers reveal through their bids exactly what they're willing to pay. And in this case, someone was willing to pay $42 million, establishing that as the current market value. For you watching this video, wondering whether you might have valuable coins in your possession, the 1981 penny offers several important lessons. First, examine all your 1981 pennies carefully, looking for any unusual characteristics, multiple strikes, off-center strikes, wrong color or weight, unusual metal composition, die errors, or any other abnormalities. Second, understand that coins from transitional years when the mint was making changes are more likely to have interesting errors. Third, never throw away or spend coins that look unusual without having them examined by an expert first. Fourth, knowledge is power. The more you learn about coins, errors, and minting processes, the better equipped you'll be to recognize valuable finds. Fifth, get anything unusual professionally authenticated and graded, as that investment can pay off enormously if you found something significant. The story of this coin should inspire you to look at every coin you encounter with fresh eyes, because while the odds of finding a $42 million penny are admittedly extremely low, the odds of finding coins worth hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars are much better if you know what to look for. The 1981 Lincoln penny worth $42 million stands as the ultimate achievement in modern era coin collecting, a piece that proves extraordinary value can hide in places no one would think to look, and a reminder that the minting process, despite all its sophistication and controls, can still create miracles that change lives. This coin will be studied, discussed, and admired for generations. Its image reproduced in numismatic publications and educational materials. Its story told and retold as the greatest modern coin find. And as long as people collect coins, this 1981 penny will hold a special place as the most valuable Lincoln cent ever discovered. The coin's existence also raises tantalizing questions about what else might be out there. If a $42 million coin could hide in demolition rubble for decades, what other treasures might be waiting in old mint facilities, abandoned buildings, forgotten collections, or even in current circulation? The possibilities are endless, and that uncertainty is part of what makes coin collecting so exciting. So as we conclude this incredible journey through some of the most valuable pennies ever sold, from the $9,000,2016 D penny all the way up to this $42,001,981 masterpiece, I hope you've been inspired to start examining your own coins more carefully, to learn about errors and varieties, and to never dismiss the possibility that something extraordinary might be hiding in your pocket change, your old coin jar, or that collection you inherited from a relative. The world of rare coins is filled with amazing stories of discovery, incredible values, and the thrill of finding treasure where no one expected it to be. And now that you have the knowledge from this video, you're equipped to potentially make your own discovery. Check your pennies, examine them carefully, protect anything unusual, get expert opinions, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a coin worth millions. Thank you for watching Error Coins Hunter, and remember, every penny deserves a second look because the next fortune could be right in your hands.